AskReddit by Adrude 9726. What made you nope out of a friendship? Constantly trauma dumping and amp, making the entire friendship all about themselves and amp their issues. But when I wanted to vent rant myself, I wasn't listened to. It seems like this is becoming more and more common. Kinda sad really, we all need each other. I was the only one starting conversations, so I stopped talking and we never spoke again. I had that one time, but the friendship didn't end. They just said that I was the one initiating conversations, so they got used to it and thought I'm mad at them or something when I stopped, lol. Bragged about possibly scamming someone out of 10k. She started using me as an alibi when cheating on her husband. Didn't even ask me first, not that I would have agreed to it. It was so audacious. And her husband was a super nice guy that I really enjoyed hanging out with, and she ruined that friendship too by using me as her alibi. Did you tell her husband? Someone took pity and sat me down. Explained that nobody I thought of as a friend was really a friend. I was just surrounded by people who acted friendly to me so they could use me. Started looking at things with my eyes open to that, and she was right. Lots of people claimed to be my friend but never actually included me in anything they ever did with their real friends, and was never available when I invited them to go do things with me as a friend. If I don't initiate the contact, I never hear from anyone until they show up needing someone with a pickup truck, or to help them with their work, or needed my access to someplace. I'm sorry, that must have felt pretty awful. I hope you have people who do appreciate you now. A lack of emotional support whenever you need a listening ear, both positive and negative things, and amp, feeling worse after offloading than before you shared anything. I tried to hang out multiple times. They cancelled or ghosted me day of each time. I get things coming up, but eventually you just have to realize your worth. This is how my best friend was. She'd do something big with me, like go to another state for a convention. Then she'd ghost me for the next 10 months and or blow off all our plans at the last second. Kinda like a deadbeat dad who shows up and takes the kids to Disney and then vanishes again. I got sick of it after a few years. I'd been friends with this guy for like 3 years. I was giving him a ride since he was in a bad spot financially and didn't have a car. He mentioned that the reason he was working for his friend's t-shirt printing business for like $9 an hour was because he got paid in cash and his baby mama couldn't take child support from him. All the time I had known him, I had no idea he had a daughter, and I was giving him rides because of a situation he created himself so he could defraud the mother of his child out of what little support she was owed from him. Fuck deadbeat dads. I kicked him out of my fantasy football league too. Friends with a couple whose kids were the same age as mine. Over 10 years, we'd get together a handful of times each year. We lived in different towns, but close enough to drive to for an afternoon to hang. At one point, I recognized I had been calling him, but either catching him at a bad time or going to voicemail. After the 4th attempt to connect, when I spoke to him, he said he had about 5 minutes to chat as he was heading into a meeting. I said, no worries. Call me when you have time. It's been at least 4 years. Know your worth. They couldn't understand working a full-time 9-5 meant I could not randomly go out drinking until 2 AM during the week. Yeah, I had this situation with someone who was freshly out of college and unemployed. I'm about 3 years older than them, but the maturity difference from 22-25 is actually huge. 25 years. She became obsessed with a sport broadcaster, Brian Formica, and started stalking him. They started dating. I was happy for her. I met them at Chapital and he said something racist, the N-word, about another broadcaster and I felt uncomfortable. Next she started stalking him to such an extreme I didn't hear from her for a year. Finally he escapes to Arizona. Meets a woman. Goldie met a new guy but kept sending me photos of Brian's new fiancée. Texting me daily about how much she hates her. For months. Suddenly I had an issue with my teeth. Over 25 years I thought talking about issues was a two-way street. I texted her I was headed to the dentist and she wrote back, "OMG, if you ever talk about your teeth again, I'm going to block you. I never judged you for your borderline personality disorder, but if you chose this as your hill, meh, you're shitty." And this was a year after her. She came out as bi, we said cool. She came out as gay, we said cool. She started spending more time in gay spaces, we were supportive. She then became a gay supremacist, saying shit like the straights are less evolved than us and saying that shit to our friends who are some of the biggest allies I've ever known. I've never heard gay supremacist before, that's hilarious. She became an alcoholic with no self-control and wouldn't get any help in spite of her young children begging her. She added prescription drugs to the mix and went further downhill. Cheated on her husband, who was a lifelong neighbor and friend of mine, and used me as an excuse, without me knowing. She blamed me for her dog attacking two other dogs and then her. Color me done. When they replied okay I see or okay to your venting texts and they expected you to reply long paragraphs to them when they're venting to you. Or ghosting or changing topics after long paragraphs. Not respecting my boundaries. Expecting me to drop what I was doing at a moment's notice to accommodate her. Getting together had to always be at her convenience rather than at a time that worked for both of us. He was always late. It made it impossible to plan anything. A lunch, movie, even just a walk. Not worth the aggravation. There were times I'd be at the restaurant at the agreed time and he would still at home but on my way. Nope. Can I just say I have known people that no matter what are always late. I've heard it defended as that's just how they are. Bro, it's not difficult to set your alarm clock 5 minutes earlier. You live 10 minutes away from work and are scheduled the exact same time every day. Sorry, had to vent a little. Sexually harassed to my friends. No second chances on that one. I read harassed as harvested and I really need a nap. It's lame but realizing one, they never reached out first. 2, they don't bother asking me how I'm doing. They just talk about themselves. I don't think that's lame at all. No give and all take isn't a friend. She started gatekeeping depression and mental health issues. Because she thought I had a better childhood and less trauma than her, I wasn't allowed to be depressed or have mental health issues. He turned out to be a pedo. He kicked my dog. That's like kicking my kid. WTF. Who kicks a dog? Alcoholism, it changes a man for the worse, and that's an understatement. Did not respect my boundaries. He once drove over a hedgehog for fun. I had this happen but it was a possum. Looked at me like I was supposed to be impressed after. Broken promises.